All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Imagine, just for a second, a world where a simple bucket of clean drinking water costs you more than a brand new iPhone or even a luxury car. It sounds like a sci-fi movie, doesn't it? But as we peel back the layers of global resource management today, we are seeing a rapid, honestly fascinating shift. We constantly talk about gold and oil as the world's ultimate assets, but there's this new blue gold that is quietly positioning itself right at the center of our next global conflict.
When we think about historical wars, right, we're super familiar with battles over strategic trade routes, like the Strait of Hormuz, or massive reserves of oil. But that paradigm, it's completely flipping. The next major global conflict probably won't be fought over shipping lanes or invisible borders on a map. Instead, we're looking at battles fought over access to clean water, the construction of dams, and who controls this invaluable blue gold.
And so that begs a pretty terrifying question. What actually happens when the very source of life itself becomes a battlefield? We're already seeing the shadows of this reality when we look at the intensely dangerous water diplomacy surrounding massive, life-giving rivers like the Indus and the Brahmaputra. If the flow of those rivers gets threatened or weaponized, it's no longer just some diplomatic disagreement at a summit. It instantly becomes a sheer matter of human survival.
Moving into our first major section here. Asia's melting water tower and the ticking time bomb in the Himalayas.
Let's bring this a little closer to home, moving away from global trade routes and into our own backyard. 2 billion. Take a second to really wrap your head around that number. 2 billion lives. That represents the massive population of people who rely entirely on these Himalayan rivers for their daily survival. The Himalayas act as the literal water tower of Asia, feeding this massive network of rivers. But right now, that towering reserve is under an unprecedented threat, and the stability of those 2 billion lives is just hanging in the balance.
To really grasp the severity here, we have to look at the geopolitical powder keg we're dealing with. Picture this. You've got 3 nuclear powers, India, Pakistan, and China, all relying heavily on one single, rapidly melting water source. With baseline temperatures sitting about 1.4 degrees higher than the pre-industrial average, those Himalayan glaciers are melting at an alarming rate, and when they vanish, these mighty roaring rivers turn into seasonal streams. In a region where something like a downed drone can spark an international crisis, imagine what happens when one of these nations decides to build a transboundary dam to hoard their dwindling water supply. A single dam could literally trigger a massive regional explosion.
And the timeline for our climate reality is escalating fast. Let's rewind a bit to 1877. An El Niño phenomenon caused the year without winter, triggering horrific famines that wiped out millions across India, China, and Brazil. Fast forward to today, we're sitting at that dangerously high plus 1.4 degree baseline, and looming right around the corner, the highly alarming forecast of a 2026 Super El Niño. History is practically screaming at us here, showing the staggering human costs when nature is disrupted, and this timeline proves we're accelerating toward an even greater crisis if we don't drastically change course.
All right, shifting gears to Section 2, the urban development trap, or building the concrete jungle.
To truly understand how this global crisis hits us in our daily lives, we've got to zoom down from international borders right onto the pavement of our rapidly expanding cities. Just look at this data. In the year 2024 alone, India destroyed a staggering 18,000 hectares of primary forest. 18,000! In this blind, frantic race to build these concrete jungles, we are actively destroying the exact natural infrastructure that protects our water and regulates our climate. We are literally bulldozing over our own life support systems just to look modern. And doing that paves the way, literally, for the urban heat island effect. This explains exactly why cities like Bhopal and Nagpur are just absolutely baking in unbearable 45-degree heat. You see, when we swap out trees for endless slabs of concrete, that concrete just sits there, absorbing the sun's heat all day long, trapping it, and then slowly releasing it at night. The result? We are effectively sinking our own cities, totally drying out the soil, and watching our underground water tables completely vanish.
Which brings up a really profound point from the source material. We like to think we are developing, right? But actually, we are, and I quote here, building a gold-plated cage where we might eventually work ourselves to death just to afford the basic necessities. We are totally trapped in the cycle of middle-class indifference and so-called progress that directly threatens our basic access to life and water. I mean, what good is a fancy modern city if you can't even afford a simple glass of water inside of it?
Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the survival revolution, moving from passive observers to active participants. So, how do we get out of this?
Well, the very first mental step out of this impending doom is shaking off that passive mindset. The belief that nothing can be done just because that's the way things are. Instead, let's consider the Japanese philosophy of ikigai. Basically, it translates to a reason for being. Finding your ikigai means hunting down that perfect intersection between what the world desperately needs right now and what you uniquely can do. It's all about snapping out of the trap of indifference and stepping into the survival revolution with real, tangible purpose.
To make this super practical, here is a clear, actionable, 3-step framework for winning this local war on water and heat. Number 1, protect the old-growth trees right in your neighborhood. Number 2, make the transition away from a heavily polluting coal grid and move towards solar energy. And number 3, find your purpose, your ikigai, because that's what will keep you grounded and motivated in this fight. This right here, this is how we take the power back.
Let's break down the why behind those steps because the data is just fascinating. Planting new baby saplings feels incredible, sure, but the brutal reality is that about 90% of them die. It's actually the existing old-growth trees that do the heavy lifting, lowering local temperatures by up to 12 degrees. And as for solar energy? Guys, it is no longer just some eco-friendly lifestyle choice, it is literally a survival tool. By moving away from a grid that's 70% dependent on coal, you gain true independence. Look at conflict zones like Syria. Adopting solar there has become a literal survival revolution, because it's the absolute only affordable way to keep the lights on and keep the water pumping.
Now, to actively arm yourself for this transition, the source material gives us 2 immediate, highly practical resources to empower your next steps, and I highly encourage you to check them out. First, download their free career guide. It's specifically designed to help you pinpoint your purpose in this shifting landscape. And second, to make sure you stay ahead of the curve, you can join their upcoming masterclass. It explores how we can leverage advanced tools like AI to tackle these massive, complex global challenges. It's all about equipping yourself with the right knowledge today.
Because look, if we just sit back and do nothing today, if we remain totally passive, this is the haunting reality we are handing over to the next generation. For kids being born right now, 45 degrees Celsius isn't going to be some freak heat wave. It's just going to be the new normal. They will grow up in a world where they have never once experienced the simple comfort of a 30-degree summer. That is the exact timeline we are putting them on if we don't step up.
So I want to leave you with this final, pretty heavy thought. The next world war probably won't be fought with tanks or missiles. It is actively being fought right now, in your city, in your neighborhood, over the shade of a tree and the water flowing out of your tap. So the question is, are you going to let your dreams for a better world die in that trap of middle-class indifference? Or are you going to step up and join the survival revolution? What small step will you take today? Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. Take care of yourself and take care of the planet.